Hope here from Crafty Hope, and I am working on the Use It Up, Fill It Up 2 challenge from Tiffany at Southern Gals Designs. You can find her on both Instagram and YouTube. I'll try to put links below in the description, but the point of this is to take some of those unused materials you've got laying around and use them up. So I am using the backs of old Christmas cards I had laying around, and this one is number 19. So for this one, I painted a little green acrylic paint at the bottom because I knew I was going to use that cloud thing from a magazine, and then I just kind of, and it was torn and odd. That didn't fit on the card well, so I painted that green on there and then glued down those clouds. Then I had one of the paper dolls from the Tim Holtz line, and I decided I wanted to make him a little fairy. So I took at first some butterfly wings to see if those would work, and they just didn't. So I had some other stamps, which are some kind of like petal stamps. I think they're from Inka Dinka Doo, maybe. I got them at Tuesday morning. And I had stamped those on some other paper that had been sitting aside, so I cut those petals out and glued them to the back of that little guy. And then I took some of my hand carved stamps that were kind of flower shaped and some Distress Oxides, and just kind of put down some flowers there on the background to kind of make it a flower field for my little fairy guy to be in. So, and I went around some of the clouds. There'd been some white showing where the paper didn't cover the whole card, and I took that Distress Oxide and just kind of rubbed that around the outside to frame it up and fill in some of that white space. And I glued down my little fairy guy, and I was looking for some kind of phrase to put down there, and I couldn't decide on anything. I ended up going with, I looked at my Tim Holtz Chit Chat stickers, and those worked. But first I went around the fairy guy with I think it's called a Stardust pen. It's from Jelly Roll, and it's basically like a little glitter pen, and I absolutely love it. Now this is one of the Chit Chat stickers from Tim Holtz, and I think it says something like, leave a little sparkle wherever you go, or something like that. And I went around it with the sparkle pen and I think a Stabilo all pencil, and that was it. He's adorable. Now, number 20 here. Oh, and I have to go and tell y'all that this set of 3 is probably my favorite of the sets of 3. There's something about these 3 that I just, well, at least so far. And so for this next card here, I took some of my ephemera that I have from, and I think it's Paper Journal. I don't know. I'll put a link in the bottom. It's just some ephemera that I glued down just to cover up the sentiment that was on the card. And then I used some of my homemade alcohol inks in a purple and a green, and just sprayed those on there just to add a little color, something on there to get me started. And then I took a couple acrylic inks in purple, and I think it was like a bright yellow or an orangey yellow, really, and put that down along with some gesso to blend it. Now I'm using a gold acrylic paint, and just I added some dots with my finger and then rubbed that gold around on the side, and I have no direction. I'm just playing around. I added a little more of that yellow because it didn't seem like, I don't know, it kind of disappeared when I blended the gesso on. So when I turned it over to kind of splotch off some of that gold paint, and I think I got more in some other areas, but it worked great because it's, yeah. Now I have this stamp. I got it at my local scrapbooking store. They had a bunch of them on clearance, and I don't even know who made it because I took it out of the package and threw all that away, and I don't know. But basically it says dream big, but I just used the dream portion of it, and some, like, I think it's seafoam green acrylic paint. Now I'm growing around this with a felt tip pen that's like one of the Sharpie pens, but it's not Sharpie, it's some off-brand. And I went around the dream to accentuate it, and I'm using a oil pastel to make some little cross hatches, like little crosses on there to add a little texture. And I go around the dream again. I realized it was kind of messy when I did it, but not messy enough to be intentional, so I made it intentionally messy around that dream portion and glue down a little bit that was poking up, and that was it for this one. It turned out beautifully. Now, this last one is number 21. And again, I'm taking some random papers that were in my stash. They had stamps and paint and stuff on them, but they needed to be used up. So I'm throwing those down on there along with, I think, a couple pieces of a handwritten letter that I have just to cover up some of that space. I didn't leave as much white space in this one as I have with some of my other ones. And then I'm taking some gesso and scraping that over. I was trying to push back some of the stuff that's on there, the stamps and the color and the writing and all that, just kind of push them into the background. And once I get those dried with my heat gun, I get out a dark blue acrylic paint and a stencil and just put down a couple little spots of the stencil to get, I don't know, a little texture on the card. And then I take one of my hand carved stamps and I think that stays on, and add a couple touches, some black on there. Now, this is an old yearbook, and I think this is one of the faculty pictures in the yearbook. And I just like this little lady. She grabbed me, so I picked her out. And then I picked out a couple little pieces of paper that I thought could go like behind her, just to, I don't know, to frame her up or something. Just something I want to layer behind. So I added some of that dark blue paint on some of those papers and around the outside of her photo. And then I found the green that kind of went with what was already on there that I had tried to push back, and put that on a stamp and kind of put that on the card a little bit and on some of the papers, and then I just brayered a touch of it on to fill it out, just to get that color on there. And then I layer up all these papers and glue them to the back of the picture. Again, I'm just trying to add some interest to that picture. And then I glue the whole little stack down on my card. And from there, I needed more, so I added a couple little dots with a Sharpie paint pen, and I looked for a phrase and cut it down just so it would fit better on the card, and then went around it with a pen, just kind of messily, and then went around the picture a little bit messily. And that was kind of it. I did a couple scribbles with that same pen and finished it up. That's it, guys. I hope you like this. Subscribe, give me a thumbs up, and thank you so much for coming by. It means the world.